Hello, welcome to Eliminate Workplace Stress, how to create a workplace that thrives. My name is Larson Schlitz, and I'm really glad to have you here joining us today in how to make some huge changes that is going to affect many things besides the bottom line of employers and the workplace. We're talking about people's lives. We're talking about life and death issues here. So thank you for joining us, and I know that you won't regret the time that you're going to spend here today to listen to what I and Joshua Haas and Dave Mahler have to say about how to make the changes you need to make personally and professionally to make life a better place to be for all of us. Workplace stress is just an unbelievable, costly thing to people in America these days. We don't even realize it. But if you've been around for having to deal with things like paper and more people who have either quit or lost their jobs, gotten fired, gotten sick, aren't there, and you've now had to take on more and more and more, doing jobs that you weren't even trained to do, you know that we've all been there. And this is a huge problem today. How big of a problem is it? Well, here's how people feel. 83% of workers plan to look for a new gig when the economy heats up. Think about that. 83% of workers not satisfied with their job. 35% of top performing corporate employees are at high risk of leaving their jobs. 35% of top performing, we're talking the people that are making you the most money out there, are ready to quit, ready to leave. 60% of your workers feel pressure to work too much. Hey, anybody listening? Been there, done that? Who hasn't? I think we've all felt that. 83% of employees want more time with their families. Dave, when he talks, will tell you that making money is number 5 on most people's list of work satisfaction and what matters to them. 56% of workers are either somewhat or completely dissatisfied with their jobs. 56%, that is crazy numbers. This comes from the Society for Human Resource Professionals, the Simpson Consulting, from a Gallup poll that was done. Now, I find this unbelievable. Now, this is a consulting firm that did that. I just want to mention that because we're going to talk to you more about how to fix these problems in your own workplace a little bit later. Get this, the total health and productivity cost of worker stress to American business is estimated at $50 to $150 billion annually. Now, this is, you're going to hear a bunch of different, somewhat conflicting statistics, and of course there's a lot of different kinds of training out there, a lot of different kinds of assessments that are done by different places. Some of these that I'm telling you are coming from the Center for Disease Control, some are coming from the Center for Stress, some are coming from the Department of Labor, so you're going to hear conflicting statistics, but any way you look at it, this is crazy. For at $50 to $150 billion because of productivity and worker stress. Now let's just look at a couple of the different things, how it can affect. In one study, the frequency of medication errors declined by 50% after prevention activities were implemented in a 700-bed hospital. Think about that. That came from the Journal of Applied Psychology. 50% of medication errors that had been previously made and over time had been tracked, they were decreased by 50%, and that's in a 700-bed hospital just by implementing some of the strategies we're going to teach you today. In a second study, there was a 70% reduction in malpractice claims in 22 hospitals that implemented stress prevention activities compared to the 22 hospitals that didn't. Now, which end of that would you like to be on? Do you want to be on the 70% where they didn't have to file malpractice, are those the hospitals you'd like to be going to? I know they are the hospitals I'd like to be going to. So let's take a poll. Hey, do you guys have a stress reduction prevention activity in place here? Because I'm going to go here if that's the case. So it is that important. Now, California Workers' Compensation Institute reported that gradual mental stress claims more than doubled just from 1980 to 1982 and surpassed the average cost of claims for other occupational disease. Get that. Mental stress claims were the top occupational disease in that 2-year period. That's another thing. And that came from the Prevention of Work-Related Psychological Disorders from the American Psychologist. Now, what does stress do that makes a difference for all of this medical costs? And what are you going to see when you're looking at your employees, or when you as a person, as a counselor, perhaps if there's a counselor or social worker listening, or maybe you're an individual that has some of these symptoms. Think about these symptoms. They could be stress related. They have to do with your head, issues with mood, anger, depression, irritability, sadness, lack of energy, swings in appetite, concentration problems, sleeping issues, headaches, pain, mental health issues like anxiety disorders and panic attack. Why does that say that's your head? Because our brains produce chemicals, and chemicals are what control every other part of our bodies, everything else. And if we are chemically imbalanced, like you all know women are, at least, part of the month during that certain times of their lifespan, there may be those chemical imbalances that cause people to be a little bit moody. But these are things that can happen because of stress, depression, anxiety, panic disorder. We'll talk more about that later, but all of those come from a chemical imbalance in the brain. And we can handle stress for a period of time. Like if you can imagine your child falls under the wheel of a car and they're stuck under there. You have heard, and maybe you've experienced, that miraculous ability to go pick up that car and move it. That's adrenaline. And adrenaline can cause a lot of good things to happen for us to deal with stress for a period of time. But when that stress becomes chronic, or if those chemicals have become depleted, which in the case of moving a car and going through that, they deplete quite quickly. The next day, you can't come up and pick up that car in the same manner that you did during that crisis. What happens is that becomes depleted and your body becomes chemically imbalanced, and then you can't function. You just can't function. And so these other things happen. All of these other symptoms begin to take over depending on what chemicals are now missing. And for many people, they are already predisposed to certain kinds of things like heart disease and diabetes and mental illnesses like depression and anxiety. Those things are already there, kind of waiting in the lurch to come to fruition. And here now we have chronic stress, and it pushes you over. Skin problems like acne. Gee, you're breaking out. You're wondering why? Stress. Muscle aches, pains, tension, lower body, bone density, even when you haven't been doing anything strenuous, stress. Heart, increased blood pressure, heartbeat, high cholesterol, instances of heart attack. Why? Stress. Stomach cramps, reflux, nausea, weight fluctuation. Your pancreas, diabetes might come about because of that. Your intestines and digestive tract, irritable bowel syndrome, diarrhea, constipation, all stress related. Reproductive system, reduced sex drive, lower sperm production for men, increased pain during periods for women, stress related. And your immune system, the ability to battle and recover from illness. All of those are stress related issues. How we cope with some of those things, we all know how we cope. Eating, not eating. Drinking, not drinking. Drinking alcohol, a lot. Drinking other things. Too much Mountain Dew to stay awake. Too many energy drinks. And then you can't sleep, so you've got sleep problems. Some people use drugs to handle that. Maybe you start with with taking a sleeping pill, no big deal. Before long, you're taking half the bottle, and then you're not functioning at all. You're not getting up for work. You're late. All kinds of these things create problems. Some people gamble to try to make more money. That becomes, people are looking for a way to escape feeling yucky. And if that's a concern for you on any level, you're in the right place here by listening to this, watching this video, or listening to this audio, whichever you're doing. You're in the right place because we have solutions for you that work. They have proven to be successful in increasing your profits by 5 times what you are now. And if you are in a negative profit, all the more reason why you need to get involved and listen to what we're going to talk about today. My name is Larson Schlitz, and I have over 20 years experience in the counseling field. I'm a licensed counselor and social worker in the state of Wisconsin, and I have worked as a school counselor. I was also in private practice for a number of years. And the last 16 years, I've worked for the state of Wisconsin as the employment and training career counselor in north central Wisconsin. As part of that role, I also was the disability navigator, helping employers and individuals with disabilities to make the connection and to help employers figure out how to evaluate their workplace to be sure they were disability friendly. And the training that I'm kind of looking at today, going to share with you, and is the foundation for this whole presentation, is a program that I piloted called the Workplaces That Thrive. So that's what we're going to talk about. But I've served as an expert witness in disability claims and discrimination issues. I also started a nonprofit organization in Wausau, Wisconsin, after being frustrated along with my veterans representative because we had a hard time finding people jobs that were living under bridges. So helping that homeless population was really important, especially realizing that we had 360 some estimated homeless veterans in our county alone, and there was an estimated 8,000 of them in Wisconsin. That just did not seem right to me. So we started a nonprofit organization hoping to get grant funding, which was very challenging. But we started this program in 2001. It grew and grew and grew until by 2007 we had bought another house, and then 2008 bought a 20-bed house, and there now we had 46 beds and 5 different places where people were living. And we started businesses, because these are the kind of people that I'm going to talk about today. These are the kind of people that are having a lot of problems with getting jobs because they have mental health and substance abuse issues. They've done things while they were under the influence, so then they ended up with a criminal record, drunk driving, disorderly conduct, whatever. So now they've got a criminal record, and that was hindering them as well. Many of them were so depressed and discouraged about their work situation that they just couldn't get out of the cycle of alcohol and drug abuse. So this program that we developed not only housed, clothed, and fed them, but because we couldn't find enough grant funding to keep the ball rolling, we started some businesses that people needed to have in town that these guys could do, like lawn care and snow removal. But then we also had lots of donations that came in, so we started a secondhand store. And we trained these guys how to do all of these. Now, all these people had a very functional life at some point in time. Many of them were veterans who had obviously served our country honorably and did wonderful things for us. And here they were reduced to homelessness without anything and couldn't get a job. So here they had skills, they just didn't have opportunities to use them. They were kind of all washed out, some people felt. So we put them in these positions and trained them how to run a store, and how to price things, and how to market, and how to sell, and how to do all fix furniture that could be resold. And in 2 years, these people made over $400,000. I say these people, those mentally ill, substance abusing, dirtball scumbags, as people have called folks that end up in that situation. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm one of those people that I've been through a lot of those things myself and crawled out from under my depressed hole of wanting to kill myself to do what I'm doing today with a master's degree, and doing this because I had the opportunity and because people believed in me. And that's what my spiel is today, and why I'm just so passionate about telling you. Every community needs this. Every business needs this. And our community recognized the need because we were filling a void that nobody else was filling, giving these kinds of folks a chance to start over again. And as a result of that, my husband and I were nominated as the Red Cross Hometown Heroes of the Year. That same year, I was nominated and received the Athena Award, which is a pretty impressive award, which I had frankly never heard of because I was hanging with the people that nobody else would hang with, rather than people who, could get into the Athena Award. But for me, it was a huge honor. But yet, I just feel I'm a vessel of doing what I was put on this earth to do, and I'll talk about that too. I also got commendations from the Secretary of Workforce Development, Reggie Newsom, and Governor Scott Walker for the outstanding work that I was doing, both as the counselor for the Job Center in the 9-county regions, creating new and creative things like doing webinars instead of traveling all over the place, and also for my work with Randlin Homes. And if you want to look that up, it's RANDLIN, randlinhomes.org, and working with those homeless veterans and the job seekers and employers, matching everybody up. So I've got some credentials behind me, but what I'm really here for, and I'm on this earth because of the paradigm of the faucet, I call it. It was a paradigm shift for me, and I believe it is for a lot of people. And here's what it is, and this is how it can transform your life, how you look at everybody and everything, and certainly will transform your business when you realize this. The paradigm of the faucet is this, that number one, you are life or death to those who need what only you can bring them. And it's the paradigm of a faucet because if you're a faucet and the only faucet in a desert, or the only faucet when somebody needs a drink, that's why I call it the faucet. No one who ever came before you or who will ever come after you can change the world like you can. Wherever you've been put and planted, you are there for a purpose, and nobody else can do what you can do because nobody else has been where you've been. Nobody else has ever touched the people or had contact with the individuals or worked for the employers or had the children or talked with the teachers like you do. Everybody is so unique in that way that nobody else can replace that. And it doesn't matter if you are the best, most polished faucet in the whole world. What matters is that you are available and willing to be used to share what you have to give when it's needed. I was a farmer and I baled hay in 100-degree weather with 85% humidity. And if there was not a clean hose around to drink from, I didn't care if it was laying in the manure pile. If I was thirsty, I turned it out and I drank the water. So that's my point. When we talk about those people have a gift that is just undiscovered because people haven't been willing to look past the yuck to get to them and to foster what's there. Number 4, because you are so good at what you do and people need what you have, they will drink from your well. My point exactly. So you can't underestimate your own value or the value of anybody that you are working with or working for. Everybody is valuable. And it just makes me crazy when I hear people say, oh, he's worthless. I hear that all the time, and I just can't stand that because it is so not true. You just haven't found how to utilize that person and how to support them in the gift they've been given. And because you and everybody that we deal with are so desperately needed, We must invest in becoming the best that we can be so that you're meant to do what you're intended to do, and you can leave a legacy of hope. We have to invest not only in ourselves, but we have to make the timely, the financial, the personal investment in the people that we know, interact with, and care about, because they too will change our lives in return. We have to leave that legacy of hope. And for me, the word hope means help, opportunity, praise, and encouragement. And that's what we need to provide. What can we do to help you solve your problem? Now, Joshua Haas is the owner of All In Coaching and Consulting. And we are teaming up. I am the owner of Faucet of Hope Ministries and Professional CEU Services. Both of our organizations are about the same thing. They are about empowering people, helping them to discover their best thing, and giving them all the tools they need to get to where they want to go in life. So we're combining our efforts because we have different gifts, skills, and abilities, just like the whole faucet principle. Josh has things I need, he has things we both need each other in different ways. So we're teaming up and hoping to get a bunch of other people on our team to solve the problem. Now, here is our first solution, which is the stress reduction kit. It is a kit that merely has a big circle in it that you can put it on a table, you could put it on the wall, and then you put the kit firmly there, and the instructions are simple. Bang your head on it several times, as many as necessary, or until you're unconscious and you don't feel the pain anymore. Banging your head against a wall or on a table, that's what you get when you keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity. So you can keep banging your head against the wall. I can give you one of these kits, and it'll actually even give you a bullseye to shoot for. Or we can help you in better ways, and I can give you a buttectomy. Now, I'm the first of my kind that I'm aware of, a expert buttectomologist is what I call myself, and Josh is the same in this, and we're actually putting together a training program for this. But the procedure is a buttectomy, and that is a person who specializes in the removal of the butts, B-U-T-S, from an individual that are causing undue stress and underachievement, and preventing them from making the changes needed to be fully productive and fulfilled. But is an argument for your limitations, and when you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. And the buts are things like, but I can't afford it, but I don't have time, but what if it's not fair? Treating people differently won't be fair. Well, fair is treating people differently. Fair is not treating everybody the same. So we're gonna certify people in how to become buttectomologists, because that's what this training kind of is about, obviously in different terms, but it's about finding ways to help people quit making excuses for why they aren't doing what they know they need to and should be doing, and to do it with joy, because they are doing it because they want to, instead of because they have to. This is how you get employee engagement. You have to come in through the back door instead of saying, you have to do this because I said so, which is what the unfortunate reality is of most employers, is that they try to force people to do things. And the same person would do way more work if you would help them, empower them to come up with the ideas themselves. So I'm writing a book called Are You Plagued with the Big Butt Blues? Time to call in the buttectomologist and quit making excuses and live your dreams. So you can find out more about that at lindalarsenschlitz.org. I'll be working on that. But we actually want to help you in a before I get my book done, we want to help you in a training program that is really going to help you. Now, sometimes businesses think, who is the threat? I need to get rid of that person. And so you look for the person in your business who is causing all the problems, and then you try to get rid of them. Perhaps your question needs to be, what is the threat? Not who is the threat, but what is the threat? And the stress is, like I said, it is about stress. It is about understanding that because of we have such a stressful work environment, and you may not even realize, you've got to educate people. You have to educate everyone about the reality of the mental illnesses and the substance abuse being illnesses and not weaknesses. So when you're working with people that are on the job, that have stress, that do have a mental illness, now maybe they came in with a mental illness, which, you know, statistics are 1 in like 5 people have a mental illness. We'll find that out pretty quickly here. But you've got to educate people. You've got to take the steps to learn what can be done to help develop a workplace that supports people and brings out their best. You have to look at your policies, and you can't just stick with the, well, that's how they've always been, because that's what you're always going to get then. Do they support people getting well, or do they cause more stress, anxiety, and illness? The training that I'm going to show you, some of which I mentioned, is called the Workplaces That Thrive. It's a resource for creating mental healthy friendly work environments, and this resource is actually all online. It is a wonderful resource, and I'm going to take you through some of it. I'll show you where you can access it. It was done in like 2002, so some of it is outdated, but much of it is very valuable. And I piloted this program, and I've been given permission to use it and to share it freely with anybody who wants it. So I'm glad to do that, but here's some of what you're going to get from this curriculum. The goal of this first training module, and this is coming right out of this handbook, is to start the process of creating a more mental health friendly environment. It's called a workplace that thrives. And what people are going to learn when they go through this training is that mental illnesses are common. There are effective treatment for mental illnesses, and people do recover. How can businesses benefit from mental health friendly policies and practices, and what a mental health friendly workplace is and does. And it gives some examples of policies and practices. Now, I'm not going to get into all that today. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what this training is. And if you wanted Josh and I to come in and go through this extensively with your people or your business or your counselors at your workplace, that if these are counselors and social workers, so that they can do train the trainer things, we are really happy to do that. But this is just an overview. It looks at how to get higher productivity and motivation, how to reduce absenteeism, how to contain your health insurance costs, get that loyalty and retention that you desperately need, and how to make sure that you have diversity, acceptance, and respect in the workplace so you don't face the unbelievably expensive lawsuits that are out there when people don't follow the guidelines that are out there for people with disabilities. Now, most employers have heard of the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, that was implemented in 1973 for people to ensure that employers were not discriminating against people with disabilities. That doesn't work so well, especially with people with mental illness, because folks don't understand it. And the other problem is that even though mental illnesses are common and they can affect anyone regardless of age, culture, race, gender, ethnicity, economic status, location, they affect almost every family in America. They affect more than 17 million people in the United States in any given year. And this was an old statistic. I took it right from the book from 2003. But they are health conditions that involve thinking, mood, and behavior, like I said earlier. And this is huge. It affects millions of workers. It affects, alcohol abuse and dependence falls under that mental illness category, major depression, social phobias. 38% of workers experience at least 2 different mental conditions each year. That's insane. That's a crazy number. I mean, that is over a third of your workforce that suffers from a diagnosable mental illness in any given year. And why is that again? That's stress is oftentimes what triggers these things. But the lifetime prevalence of mental illness, this is pretty significant as well, that like 17% of people are going to experience this. Major depression. Major depression has a huge effect on how people function or don't on the job. It is the #1 mental illness that affects people, and productivity and absenteeism, all of those kinds of things, is major depression. And it affects more people, so that's why it costs more money. ADHD is the second highest. And ADHD, I speak from large amounts of experience with ADHD. And if any of you have ever worked with me or know me in any capacity, it would not be real tough to diagnose me without much effort, because I have a lot of symptoms of the person with ADHD that can cause significant problems on the job. An ADHD person is hyper. They're always going, always got ideas, constant channel changing going on in the brain. Oh, let's do this, let's do that. And they get way too many things going, too many balls in the air, too much on your plate. They love to do a lot of things, very creative, willing to take on new tasks, but rarely get anything finished very well, because there's such a significant problem with attention, and focus and prioritizing. So they oftentimes are massive underachievers. Also, because people with ADHD have problems with impulse control, sometimes open mouth, insert foot, and can annoy people at times. And again, I'm pretty good at doing that, because I've got so many great ideas that sometimes they think they're better than everybody else's, and so that causes some problems. And I've learned a lot of tools, but these are things you need to learn along the way. I have a book called The Ditzy Blonde Faucet. It's a God thing. And so for people who know me, ditzy is one of the words that people use to kind of define someone who has ADD. Ditzy. Forgets things, loses their keys, can't find their glasses, gets into the wrong cars, drives down the wrong way on a one-way street when they've lived there 30 years. Did that more than once. So that's ADHD. PTSD is another thing. Post-traumatic stress disorder, we usually talk about veterans when we're talking about PTSD, but this really has to do with people who have had any kind of trauma, sexual abuse victims, domestic violence victims, people who were in car accidents, who had some tragedy happen. The plant blew up, they lost their finger at work in a machine. Those can all be post-traumatic stress related. Then generalized anxiety is the next one. That's coming in at about 7%. That is people who are just stressed out and anxious a lot. Some people are just kind of have that chemical imbalance in their brain, but general anxiety can definitely be triggered and exacerbated by having a stressful environment as well. And then you got the full-blown panic disorder, which is having where your heart's racing and you're breaking into a sweat and you feel like you're going to pass out. Some people actually do. You don't dare go anything. You're kind of almost frozen. You don't dare go to the grocery store. There's no way you could get up and deliver a speech in the midst of a panic attack. That's what that's all about. And then bipolar is the next highest in the main lifetime prevalent disorders. And bipolar disorder can really resemble ADHD and major depression. They get very mixed up, And sometimes there's a major misdiagnosis. Fortunately, I had a really good doctor who also picked up that I have hypomania type 2 bipolar in addition to ADHD, which is a different kind of medication that treats that. And bipolar is when the moods are swinging way high and then way low. Being really excitable, boy, I can do anything, can't sleep, sometimes for days, to massive depression. And sometimes some people, go into really major depressions, become very suicidal. Fortunately, I don't have that major kind of bipolar. I have the kind where I'm hypomania, which is hyperactive all the time, almost all the time, and don't need a lot of sleep, which is good because I get a lot more done, or I would get a lot more done if I could focus more. So I'm going to talk about some basic accommodations that can be done. But first, you've got to get rid of the stigma. You've got to get rid of that shame and blame thing. Well, if they'd only try harder, or, if they do this, or if they do that, or they just need to go get a job or take more medication, or the name calling, all of that is what people don't dare talk about it. That's why there's a stigma. There's a stigma that somebody with bipolar is a nutcase. Those are the kinds of terms that cause people to be ashamed of talking about it or afraid to mention it to an employer. So first, you've got to get rid of that. There is treatment. There is recovery. And I think a pretty good example of somebody who has gone from barely getting on I got on the B honor roll once in high school because I couldn't focus. I didn't know what was wrong with me. To once I got treatment, getting a 3.7 in undergrad and graduate school. Now, what's up with that? Part of it is I had accommodations, and getting to the point where I've been able to function as well as I did had to do with not being afraid to talk about it, get the help I needed, take the medications that are available, eat healthier, exercise, and get the kind of supports that I need for those things that I just flat out can't do well. That's just the case of it. So recovery, it's the process in which people are able to live, work, learn, and participate fully in their communities. For some reason, recovery is the ability to live a fulfilling and productive life despite a disability. I call it being differently abled rather than disabled. For others, recovery simply is the reduction or complete remission of symptoms. Now, let me talk about disability. Now, a disability doesn't mean that you are disabled by the Social Security Administration or that some doctor even found you disabled. Disabled is even a perception that if somebody thinks that you have a limiting issue, that could be still something that falls under the Americans with Disabilities Act. But the recovery thing, science has shown that hope plays an integral role in an individual's recovery. And again, for me, hope is help, opportunity, praise, and encouragement. Because work is so integral to one's self-worth, finding and belonging to a mental health friendly workplace, it's of great significance to people who have experienced mental illnesses. And when you don't have a mental health friendly workplace, people who are stressed out don't dare come and see you. And some of the reasons they don't is because of fear. What's it going to cost? They don't know what's going to happen. Are you going to fire them? They don't know where to go for services. They are concerned about confidentiality and what other people are going to say, employers, community, is everybody going to know about it? So you got to address all of those. But so many of these people, and I know there's people listening that have felt like quitting, or maybe you did quit. Maybe you felt worthless or inadequate at your job. You get irritated, angry, more argumentative. People drink more, use drugs, food, or other means, can't sleep, sleep too much. These are just a few of the things that people do because they don't have a balance between work and family or personal life. They need the support network of friends and coworkers, and they need a relaxed and positive outlook. And if you don't provide that, there's going to be consequences. And some of the consequences of the stress is, number one, once the Staples did a survey of their own employees, they found number one was a demanding boss. Second cause was conflicts with coworkers. Third cause was workload. Fourth cause, fear of losing your job. And the fifth cause was lack of communication. And sometimes the demanding boss, because there's a lack of communication, that's why the boss seems demanding. Maybe if he'd have communicated what he expected better, that wouldn't have been such a problem. But that's an issue. What employers must do is they must understand that people have a legal right to get the proper treatment for their illnesses, and a lawsuit would cost way more than giving someone a reasonable accommodation or actually understanding the situation. I'll give you an example of somebody that I had to testify for. This was a lady who had dabbled in some drugs at one point and was arrested for, she had paraphernalia. That was it. She had I think it was even a party to a crime for paraphernalia. Now, she hadn't had problems in a couple of years. She wasn't found with drugs or anything. It was just the paraphernalia. So she got hired by this employer to work in a nursing home doing activities as an activity aide. She wouldn't have had anything to do with medication. She was just going to be playing bingo and that with them. So they hired her, but then did a background check, found she had this paraphernalia charge, didn't ask anything about mental illness or anything like that, but it became an issue. And sometimes it is because of a mental illness that someone ends up in this circumstance. I called them and said, they fired her then because they found that she had a criminal background, which kind of goes along with a lot of these things. You've got to look at what's behind this. But they called me to testify, and I said, gee, I really would rethink this whole thing. Does she have a disability? Is there an issue here? Has that issue been addressed? Is there cause for concern? They were not willing to look at any of that. I was called to testify, and she got $10,000 in damages because they didn't hire her, just simply for that. Now, you could think about that one case. The package that we have to offer you is way cheaper than that. And that was just one person. That doesn't even include all the people that are stressed out, that are ripping off the place or bad-mouthing you. It's such a minimal investment of time in assessment and training and an attitude adjustment that can save you millions and millions of dollars in changed lives. There is this incredible return on investment for health promotions, and to do the kind of training that we are suggesting that you do, that it can be $5.81 to $1. I mean, that is almost 6 times your investment in doing some of these simple trainings, rather than having to go out there and hire a consultant to see how you have to, what you have to do. I mean, I agree those things are good, but invest your money in a program like this, and you don't need to get a consultant to tell you what's wrong. If people are not doing their job, if they're calling in sick, if they are talking bad about you, if they're ripping you off, if they aren't working up to potential, here's your $10,000 thing right here. They're stressed out and they aren't engaged. And why aren't they engaged? It's because employers don't know how to engage people in that. So part of what you need to do is you need to provide accommodations. You need to do this for all of your people, and Josh will talk a bit more about that. You need to allow workers to shift their schedules earlier or later, allow them to use paid or unpaid leave for appointments related to their mental disability maybe, or allow an employee to work part-time or temporarily. Maybe it is about a sick family member. Maybe it is about a child. My boss that I had, who was the most wonderful boss ever, He helped me when my husband was in the hospital for 2 months. I spent a huge portion of that up there with him because my job did not require me to be sitting in a chair. It required me to be talking to people on the phone or writing things or doing PowerPoint presentations, or, you know, I could do all of those things from someplace other than my desk. So he allowed me that, and it made that job so invaluable to me that I stayed there for many years, longer than what I planned on, just because I knew I would not get that kind of support anywhere else. Job modification, job sharing, reassigning tasks among workers. Josh is going to talk about how to kind of divvy that up, how to do a peer mentoring training. We've got a peer mentoring training program, how you can train your people to help each other rather than having, you know, somebody come in and just bark at them. If they could kind of even job share within the job. Maybe Johnny isn't very good at doing, you know, this piece of Tom's task, but you know, Tom can do that part of, and they share it and they support each other. It can really be huge. Just reassigning the employee to a vacant position that's open rather than having to go through the hiring thing. Modifications to the physical environment. For me, I was allowed to have headphones and play music because that helped with my distractibility of everybody else talking in my around the different cubicles. Putting up partitions or room dividers or that kind of thing, or visual barriers. Changes in your policy. Extending additional paid or unpaid leave, allowing an employee to make phone calls during the day for personal or professional support if somebody's in a crisis, calling their support person that they have, or their AA sponsor, or maybe going to an AA meeting if they're really having a tough day, scheduling that in somewhere, or maybe even having an AA meeting at your workplace. Dave is going to talk about some of the most incredible creative things I've ever heard before, and that's why I asked Dave to speak. Dave Mahler, he was an employer who took all my guys from jail and turned the business upside down, making them productive, grateful, hardworking employees. It's really a cool story. Providing a private space for phone calls, letting them consume their fluids at their desk, you know, things like that. Provision of human assistance, like getting somebody to, like I had somebody to do my scheduling for me and do my paperwork, my two most horrible things. I had someone to help me do that. I had assistive technology, providing a portable computer to enable an employee to work at home, like I was saying. Software that allows them to structure their time. I'll tell you, some of the software that's out there, folks, you would not believe how much better it would be. Some of you who just absolutely hate technology and you have bucked up against it, get a cell phone that you can talk into, or use the software already on your computer that you probably don't even know is there. It's under the this assistive technology stuff on your computer through Microsoft Office. Everybody has it, where you just talk into your computer and it types for you. And I'll tell you what, more often than not, it types better than you can type. And certainly faster, and oftentimes will spell better if you get programs like Dragon, Naturally Speaking, or some of the other ones. It's amazing what it can do. So that's some of that. Supervisory techniques, and again, Josh is going to talk about that in a few minutes, but you know, teaching supervisors how to talk to people, how to interview them, how to do some basic coaching skills, like the 1 Minute Manager. My absolute favorite business book of all time is the 1 Minute Manager, and that's some of what we will teach when we come in and do the training, or do the training online, which is a lot more logical for people and a lot cheaper from people from California who might be listening, who want us to work with them. It'll be cheaper to do this online than it will be to fly us to California. So once a month if you get that package. So anyway, those are just some things. So there's lots of solutions: holding group discussions with employees, designing an employee survey, measure employees' perceptions of the job, collecting this data, and then analyzing. This is something actually that Josh and I are going to offer for free to do this. I mean, this is something that you would pay a consultant. I'm serious. You'd probably pay them $10,000 to come in and do this. We're going to do this piece of it for free, at least to design the survey and to do an evaluation and then give you some feedback. We're going to do that for free as part of our trying to convince people how important this is, because we're not about, sure, we're about money, but we're not about money. We are about helping people change their lives and get a business that they're proud of, that they can support their families on, and they can even live a really good life. Because we know that in doing that, it's going to help not only us and you, it'll help every person that you have contact with. So we are investing this globally because we know the changes need to be made on that larger scale. So I've got a lot of websites. I know Josh will be tuning in here soon. Are you on yet, Josh?
I am.
Oh, Josh is here. Okay, so I've got these websites. I'm just going to touch on them for a second. And we've got mental help, HELP.net. We've got askjan.org. We've got wimentalhealth.org, and that's in Wisconsin. We've got jobcenterofwisconsin.com. We've got dol.gov. These are all, they're on the PowerPoint here. If you're listening to this on the audio visual, you need to register and at least get this. You can get this for free. And I'll send you all that information, and part of our training will be going through each and every one of those websites and showing you how you can get unbelievable, invaluable information from each of those websites and how you'll be able to get that. So I'm going to turn it over now to Josh. Josh I was so impressed. I started looking for employers that I may be able to positively impact. And I also started looking for partners that I could do some joint venture projects with. And I went to LinkedIn and I typed in employers. I don't know how he even came up, but Josh popped up. And I read his plan and his mission to change the world and the way people are trained and the way businesses advertise and market, while also focusing on businesses' overall quality systems. I read that and I'm like, yes, that is what I want to do. That's what I do. So then I saw that he had a BS in global economics from UW-Stevens Point. He owns 4 different businesses. Okay, he really is like me, a way more, if he does have ADD, which I don't know, he certainly is not got the kind I do, because he's very focused. He was a quality systems coordinator and internal auditor, ISO 9001 for Greenheck fans. He just got licensed in the insurance industry. I put getting licensed, but that just happened a couple days ago. He has taught and trained on the Lean Six Sigma, Green Belt Six Sigma. He is a time management expert and has a whole training program on that. He does communication in the workplace and employee training. He's got this licensing now for financial planning and investments, and that's really cool. And obviously does marketing and business development. So he can do things like, I do the thing with the people as a counselor. I can come in and look at that whole person engagement. Why aren't people engaged? And give you a good clue about that. Josh can come in and look at the financial aspect. How is this affecting your business, dollars and cents wise? And how can it make more sense for you to do things in a different way, because he's now a financial planner and can tell you about that. So Josh, thank you so much for partnering with me, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I put up here what employers need, and that again is your goal for employers. So take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you for partnering up with me. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be on this stage and help as many people as I possibly can reach their goals, no matter whether it be financially, personally, business, no matter what. I want to make sure that people are happy within their job, within their business. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to share some information about myself and some information about my business. So
Great.
what employers need. My goal is to help people and businesses succeed by providing coaching tools that can help individuals grow and find their own solutions to any situation that they encounter, whether it be professionally or personally. That is my belief, and I believe that my goal is to help individuals unlock their potential. We have so much potential. We have dreams, we have goals, we have visions, and there's a lot of people that are stuck within their employment, they're stuck within their business, and that's not their dream, that's not what they want to do. We dread it, we drag through it, we try to get through it, and that's no way to live life. So my goal is to help them realize their true potential, their true goals, and say, how can I help you get there? Nothing makes me feel better than helping people reach their goals. So going through some of the stuff, I've been there. If you're asking, well, what does this guy really have as background? I see some of the credentials he has. My background is in manufacturing mainly. I did have some service jobs back when I was in college to get through school. But basically, I'm the generation, I went to college during the Great Recession. I came out and was expecting a great job that paid me an upper five-figure salary, and I was going to live the rest of my life that way, happy as could be. Unfortunately, I got out into the working world and realized that is not exactly the way it was supposed to be. So I took many different jobs, I wore many different hats, and learned as much as I could. I took trainings outside of my work that I paid for individually so I could help other people get to where they wanted to go. So continuing on with that, job conditions that may lead to stress, design of tasks. This is a great one, and I really like to focus on this, especially from a time management standpoint and also a training standpoint. Heavy workload, infrequent rest breaks, long work hours, and shift work, hectic, routine tasks, and have little inherent meaning, do not utilize workers' skills, and provide little sense of control. Example here is David works to a point of exhaustion. Teresa is tied to the computer, allowing little room for flexibility, self-initiative, or rest. So where this comes into play, I've been through this. I'm sure all of us that are on this webinar have at one point or another throughout our career had issues dealing with certain things like this. We get too much work piled on our desk. We got emails, text messages, phone calls. I mean, you name it, we're getting hit from every direction that you can possibly imagine. So how do we deal with that? And one of the things I know I like to look at is our time. No matter what we do throughout the day, we each have the same amount of time, no matter if it's 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 24 hours a day. We all get 24 hours a day, 365, 7 days a week. We all have that amount of time. It's just a matter of how do we utilize that time. When I worked at Green Heck Fan Corporation, I know I was wearing a lot of different hats, doing a lot of different projects, project management, product performance, things like this. And you really have to sit down and with a coach or with a mentor and say, okay, this is where I spend my time. How can I make my time more efficient and be more effective and get a lot of things done? When you sit down and actually analyze the data that you collect, I'm a big one on let's analyze what the problem is and then come up with a solution. So sit down, collect some data. Where are we spending a lot of our time? Can we decrease that time? I had a client I worked with in the insurance industry who was spending a lot of time outside of work doing work. And when we took a look at it, and basically the solution was for him is instead of spreading our emails out throughout the day, if we could set aside an hour at the beginning of the day and an hour at the end of the day to just strictly do just emails, we cut a 12-hour day down to an 8-hour day. Just by doing that, just by looking at, let's set aside an hour here in the beginning of the morning when we come into the office, let's set an hour before we leave, and then in between that time, let's focus on our work, but let's save our emails until then. And it made a big difference in his life. He was able to get to the gym. He's been able to work out. I'm happy to say that he's been doing it for the past 3 months consistently every day, and he's been doing some of these things with the time management standpoint. So that's huge, is getting someone to, if you are absolutely swamped, you're absolutely taken over, you don't know where you can put any more time, you don't know where to even begin, is to get a coach, get a mentor, somebody who can analyze, collect data, analyze that data, and give you some feedback and give you some direction on where you should go with that.
That's great, Josh. Great. What about management style?
Yep, management style, lack of participation by workers. We've seen this time and time again. This happens in every organization you're in. Making poor communications in the organization, lack of family-friendly policies. Example of this is Teresa needs to get the boss's approval for everything, and the company is insensitive to her family needs. This is true. I mean, you look all over the place, we're expected to do more for less, and it's all about sacrifice versus reward. And we all face this within no matter what organization we're in, no matter if you're in an organization, you own a business, even in our personal life. It's what are we sacrificing to get what we need? And usually it leads to a lot of other things, like this example says here too, lack of participation. If we don't want to participate in something or we don't believe in the concept, we usually have poor communication throughout that organization because we don't care. We show up, we want to put our 8-10 hours in, and when we're done, I just want to collect the paycheck and go home, and I don't really care what happens in between that time period. So that's something that definitely needs to be looked at, and that is usually because we have a lack of engagement. When employees are surveyed, I know the top 3 things that usually come out of a survey is not even money doesn't even make the top 3. It's feeling that they are valued and that their opinions are being heard throughout the organization. That means more to a lot of people than money, because let's face it, if you go to a job that you're not happy being there, they could pay you 6-7 figures a year, but if you're not happy, you're not going to want to do it. So being able to be involved and see changes and make changes that have a positive influence on the business means more to us as individuals within that organization than just the paycheck that we take home. So it's important to be engaged. It's important to allow and enforce or create an environment where that can happen. And I am a big component of not timing it, not setting up a ton of meetings, a half hour here, an hour there. Let that creativity take place, because the amount of money you're spending on a day-to-day basis, and we can definitely show you this financially when we come into an organization, the amount of money you're spending on this day-to-day compared to if you just let it flourish is astronomical. I mean, it definitely can hurt your industry. By not allowing this, you could literally be closing your own doors on yourself, and you don't even realize it until it's too late. So allowing, and yes, at some point it does have to be somewhat regulated. I'm not saying just make it a free-for-all. Obviously, I think we all know what I mean by that. But to be able to allow some sort of creativity, and you'd be surprised, I think, what you get from a lot of employees who feel like they're engaged. So that's one thing I know that's something that definitely has to be looked at, especially communication. If we have poor communication, we're not getting the correct information, and the only one who ends up hurting are customers. Plain and simple. If we don't get things in order, we don't get things done on time, you have one angry customer. And the old saying goes, and I really enjoy that saying, is it only takes one bad product. You can send out 1,000 good parts and send them all out on time, and you'll usually never get a referral. But one bad product could definitely bring down your whole company through referrals. So without poor communication, we definitely could put our organization in jeopardy of having that happen.
Right.
The next thing you have is interpersonal relationships. This is a big one too. Poor social environment and lack of support or help from coworkers and supervisors. Everyone could raise their hand on that. We've all been in an organization where this happens. Example of that is Teresa's physical isolation reduces her opportunity to interact with other workers or receive help from them. This is a great segue into what I wanted to talk about with my mentoring program. A lot of times when we work with many individuals who we usually are not on the same page with, and that ends up to build some kind of animosity, and we're not happy working with them. We don't want to talk with them. We don't want nothing to do with them. We can barely be in the same room. And how do you deal with that? And there's a lot of different ways you can deal with that from an employee and an employer standpoint. But one of the things that I found has been really helpful in an organization that I worked with was a mentoring program. Basically what a mentoring program does is, compared to a training program, a lot of people will say, well, what's the difference between a training program and a mentoring program? There can't be a difference. Well, that's true to a certain extent, but the other half of that is that's not true. A training program is basically let's say we get a new piece of equipment in a certain department, and that whole department has to be trained and sign off on that. So basically what ends up happening is, and tell me if this has happened to you, we set some time aside, maybe an hour, maybe two, and we sit in a room and we have the instructor in front of the room, and they go through a booklet or a pamphlet and a PowerPoint maybe, and they sit there and they talk at you, and then when they're done they say, all right, you should be able to operate this machine. Let's get out there and keep going. Let's make some product. How many of you really think you're going to retain even half that information? Because if you're like me, I would not retain hardly any of it. For me, it's always on the job. I've got to try and do it hands-on. So what happens is these individuals will go out there and they'll try, and we'll get some mistakes, which is expected at first, but it will take weeks, and it could take weeks. It could possibly even take months, depending on what kind of learner the employee is. You know, what's their learning style. So it could take weeks. So now back that up and say, okay, well, what about this mentoring program? Well, what a mentoring program does is it says, okay, we have all these people in a room who are unfamiliar with how this machine works. So how about we take our senior people who have been at the industry the longest, who are maybe a little more familiar with that, and let's sit down on a weekly basis and say, you know, what's bothering you? What don't you understand? This is the kind of issues we can run into. How do we fix that when we run into these issues? What ends up happening is when you have that constant support system, instead of this one-day training where someone comes in and talks to you and then is there for maybe email support or phone support, when you have that constant person that's there helping you, you actually learn faster, you retain that information a lot better, and you're able to, the number one thing is for an employer definitely is, we want to get our product out on time. We want to get it to our customer on time, and we want to make money doing it. We're not spending money reworking parts. We're not spending money doing the training. We've set up a mentoring program, and within those parameters, employee follows it. What happens? We increase our quality, we increase our on-time efficiencies, and our customer's happy, and that's the number one thing. So definitely there is a big need, and I think that's where employers have to shift their focus. It's not so much training programs are good, but mentoring programs are definitely more effective, and employees want to become more engaged, and that's what we have to do. You have to engage employees into wanting to participate within the organization to make it overall a better place. What's the next slide? It's taking a while. Oh, here we go. How to change the is this me?
Yeah, that I guess this is some of the things that Josh was talking about here too, is, you know, ensuring the workload is in line with the workers. This is kind of a recap of some of the things, designing the jobs to provide meaning, stimulation, and opportunities for workers to use their skills, really defining the roles and responsibilities. And I think some of this goes along with that whole evaluation piece that we've been talking about, Josh, as far as how do we evaluate what an employer needs, and you know, what could we do to help an employer to figure that out? I mean, you've got a manufacturing background and you've got a good sense of that. I worked as a waitress for 20 years and actually did this at 2510 restaurant many years ago, and came up with a pretty cool program. And it's neat because I'm sitting here right now out at our training center, and 2510 has a little cafe, and I saw the newsletter that I created 20 years ago as part of the employee assistance program. But tell me, Josh, what do you see as some of the things that we could do to help employers maybe define some of those work roles and look at that as far as assessment?
Absolutely. One of the things that I know I see, is, to be completely honest, is too much wording can definitely compress and contain certain individuals within certain roles. We have to be able to identify within an organization who's a leader, who's going to fit best in this role, who fits best in that role. And not only that, we have to challenge people. People like being challenged, and not everyone likes to be challenged, but a great way to be able to tell a promotion is not based on seniority, is based on what's the next job level, what's the step up from there, handing that individual that work and saying, could you get this done in 2 weeks? If they get it done in 2 weeks and the customer's happy and everyone's happy, that person deserves to be promoted. But then again, on the other hand, if you hand that person that information that needs to be compiled within 2 weeks and they say, boy, I really don't want nothing to do with it, okay, so that tells me they're content being where they're at. We have to get away from what's your specific role. We offer a lot more talents than just what's put on paper, what's just put on in a job application, and what's put on in just a resume. It's all about development. You have to get people, and the best people that you can have within your organization is people that you develop through the program, through years, and not just hire someone here, hire someone there. A great example I would like to use, since we just got out of March Madness, and our poor Badgers got the national championship. They lost, but they put up a heck of a fight. But if we look at that program, especially in a sports sense, the Wisconsin program built their program from within. It was all about promoting from within, building and developing, where unlike Kentucky, the basketball team, they had a great season, went 38-1 or 39-1, whatever it was. But they've got now all their players are going to the NBA, and now they've got to rebuild again. So there's a lot to be said about building within your organization and not just confining somebody. Figure out what they're good at, what they like to do, what they're not so good at, and develop that. I think we have to. That is one thing that I see going into a manufacturing setting, is that you have a lot of people that have a lot of great potential, but they've settled. They don't want to participate anymore. They don't want to communicate because they've done that. They've had their ideas shot down, and not in a good way either sometimes. So they don't want to participate. And it's hard building that trust, because those are the people that do the work day in and day out. I know I was a big component of, instead of having managers who sit in their office all day, they shouldn't be involved totally. They shouldn't be 100% involved totally on what decisions happen on the shop floor. Should they be involved? Absolutely. I'm not saying that they shouldn't. But when it comes down to making procedures and policies for what happens out there when you don't step on the manufacturing floor, it's very difficult to get that buy-in. You have to create a 50-50 working together and seeing what the other person does. It would be great for management to go out and see what the worker is doing. Maybe go out there for a day every 3 months, or 2 days every 3 months, kind of get a feel on what's going on, and maybe have the manufacturers come into the office and kind of see what a manager has to do, what an engineer has to do, things along those lines. I think we get a much more better understanding. We're not building such a barrier of communication. So I definitely I understand the roles of having them written down so everyone understands their job title, but to me at times it seems definitely very confining. So being able to come into an organization and look at that and evaluate that and kind of give some recommendations on where to go from there is definitely very valuable to an organization, because it saves you stress, saves you time, creates a happier workforce, and like I said, ultimately what they want to do, have a happy customer that pays their bills on time. So that's the idea behind it, and that's what I see from at least the manufacturing side of things, as well as converting more to a service side of things. With the service industry, you usually have a lot of high turnover, and it's and once again, a lot of that happens from being undertrained, not communicated to effectively, not feeling appreciated, not feeling wanted. So things like that. So there's definitely different things when you come in an organization to kind of put yourself in that other person's situation and try and understand, I think, is the best way to explain it. And by having us come in and look at that, we can look at a lot of different aspects, not just roles and responsibilities. We can look at financial stuff. We can implement a quality system if organization doesn't have one and they feel it'd be necessary to have employees in-house be able to do something like that. So there's a lot of things we can do for an organization, but I think when we're talking about workers' roles, I think it's a very slippery slope. I understand where it's necessary from an HR standpoint, but at the same time we have to allow for some creativity, and we have to allow for that communication to happen, no matter good or bad. Sometimes we have to sit down in a room and we have to communicate what each other feels and go from there and be a cohesive group.
I totally agree with you, Josh, and that's what I found in our little restaurant. It was interesting because I was in grad school at the time, going undergrad or grad, I forget, but I was taking a class on on workplace and career development and all of that. And in the process, I injured my own shoulder. I set a tray down and tore up my shoulder really bad, so I couldn't waitress anymore. So I had to switch jobs. Didn't like it. I had to become a hostess that only paid $7 an hour with no opportunity to get all the tips I was getting. I mean, it like cut my income in half. But I wanted to know, I was seeing some things in the workplace and a lot of other discontented workers. And so I was curious and going into counseling. So I asked if I could kind of do an evaluation of turnover. Come to find out, there was like 600% turnover rate for bussers and dishwashers. Now, those are not the floweriest kinds of jobs, and a lot of people don't like them. So for some of the people there, we needed to take a look at why that was and what were the issues. Obviously, those are not very thankful jobs, but what we found was that we needed to just maybe make some empowerment and some supportive things, and how to appreciate people more, and how to give them a sense of that this is a good job. This isn't just a busser or just a dishwasher. This is where would we be without them? So it took that change in thinking, and then I started some groups, and we had a little self-esteem group, and I started a topical talk once a month that we did on different topics of interest, and then we had a improvement, a work improvement thing where the employees met with management and they shared with them some new ideas, and we had competitions over who could come up with the best ideas for making it easier to bus a table faster or whatever it was. The whole organization, because we had at that time 105 employees involved, and everybody was involved, and it really was a cool thing. And they're still doing the Eagle Award that I started back then for somebody who was a top eagle, who, well, you've probably heard the story of the eagle that was in the chicken coop. The egg fell in the chicken coop, so the chickens raised the eagle, and the eagle didn't know he was an eagle. He thought he was a chicken. And so anyway, we started the Eagle Award to help people discover their potential, because that, I truly believe that's the problem. I believe that's the whole foundation. People do not realize how valuable they are and what they need to do. So part of what we've got a whole package that we're putting together, and Dave will be calling in here in a little bit. So I hope he yells when he gets on the line. Dave will be calling in. But Josh, why don't you go over some of the things we're talking about as far as packages that we can offer, all the different things we can do. I've got some of them on the screen, but we've got some others in our back pocket. So why don't you kind of go into some of that?
Sure, absolutely. So the solution for all in coaching consultant content includes how to develop a mental, healthy, friendly work environment, how to develop policies and procedures that will help all employees and will prevent discrimination lawsuits, how to evaluate employees and develop appropriate accommodations that will increase productivity and minimize costs of absenteeism and mental costs, best practices for business owners, evaluation of your own workplace during the breakout sessions done online, solutions to more in-depth services that are available. And I would like to stress, a lot of the people that are watching this today, being an employer, I know, we're familiar with what exactly you're going through, whether it be, let's face it, I know one of the things a lot of employers are facing, healthcare. Don't know what they're going to do with healthcare. They're paying a lot in healthcare now, and now with new federal program that's rolled out, and not familiar with how to handle it. They don't have a lot of information available on it. Definitely worried about that. You're definitely, you care about your employees. You want to do what's best for them because they make your business go around. So we understand the frustration, and it's just a matter of saying, you know what, I need some help. And the best part about it is what kind of help can you get besides free help is the best help. So allow us to come in for free, do an evaluation, and help you help your business get to the next level and continue to grow and succeed, and not cause so much stress on maybe you and your family and your employees and their family. We realize you have a lot on your plate, and we want to make it easier for you, and we want to make you succeed. So, and being able to have us come in for free and doing a free evaluation and create a package for you that makes sense, I think it's a win-win situation, and I'm looking forward to having people pick up the phone, and I'm looking forward to working with whoever calls and helping you get to the next level, helping you succeed at your goals that you want for your business and your employees. So,
Oh, that's great, Josh.
That's pretty much it.
And what's so cool about what has transpired with the internet, as much as people have fought the internet, I just think it's a wonderful tool because, we want to, Josh and I are both we want to change the world. We just don't want to help one business. We want to change the world, like a lot of the coaches out there are doing these days. And I've been involved, I kind of gone from being a counselor now to more of a coach, because it's about empowerment. Counseling is too, and it's about evaluation, but they're different. The counselor really works intensively one-on-one with individuals to deal with looking at what's happened in the past and what's going on, and I mean, it's really a therapeutic kind of a relationship. Coaches are the kind of they can work in multitudes at one time. I mean, I'm getting coaching from several different sources now, and Josh is one of my coaches. He's helping me with time management and focus. So I love it. I love it because you can kind of barter and help each other in a lot of different ways, but you can also do it at a hugely cheaper rate than you would pay if you were hiring a professional consultant who just does that one thing, and they come in and they charge you. I've seen people that have gone into businesses that have charged $100,000 to evaluate their whole business and to give them a recommendation of what they should do. Okay, so you've spent this unbelievable amount of money because you've got this huge problem, when I can tell you what the problem is before you even start. It has to do with the things we're talking about, and we'll do the evaluation for free, and then we're going to give you a package that is going to be a fraction of what you would pay if you were just working one-on-one with someone. And it's not that we won't do the one-on-one, but I'm telling you, if we can do this on a whole collaborative thing, if we can do it online, if we can do it in a set series, boy, it's going to cost people a whole lot less, not even close to what it's going to cost them to do it the other way. And the good thing is that when we give you a package, we'll be there for you for the next, as long as you want us to be. There are things where, yeah, maybe we come in and we just do some initial things, and then you run with the ball. We'll train your people, we'll train your staff, and work with your employees and do some of that training. But then, we kind of send you off and you do your thing. Like Josh was saying, it makes so much more sense than to just have people come in, do our thing, and then we leave. Well, we'll be there for you. And if you need us to come back and do a refresher, or maybe you got some new staff, and we can do that. But these resources are always going to be available to you. We're going to give you a package, and I will train you how to do these things yourself, so that you don't need me to come and do it every time. Your people will be trained how to do this yourself. So that'll save you endless amounts of money as years go on. And I'll tell you what, the people that you get to be the trainers, some of your best people may be your people who are pushing a broom right now. Those would be the people who are pushing a broom, and because they love pushing a broom, because they know that's what they're supposed to be doing. That's the kind of person you need to get to be one of your trainers, who is going to train people how to love pushing a broom, because they understand their role and they feel good about it. And so you've got to think differently. You don't just go and hire somebody that's got a bunch of degrees, because I can tell you one thing, I don't care how many degrees a person has. What I care about is passion. I care about their heart. I care about what they do for others, because if they're just in it for themselves, that is never going to be enough. It never is. And as a career counselor for the last 16 years, I can tell you that the time comes when money doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter for, like Josh said, and I know Dave will say too when he comes on, it doesn't, money is way down on the list, like number 5 on the list for people. What matters is purpose and meaning and value and hope and making a difference in the world. We all want to leave a legacy. We all want to change things. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing. And I don't care if that doing is making a product. You want to be proud of that product. You want to feel good when you see somebody driving down the road on the tire that you helped to create. I am right now sitting in the coolest place in Wausau. It is the Entrepreneurial Business Training Center. And this place exists as an incubator for new businesses like Josh and I to come and get all the support services we need. We've got a fax machine, and we've got a printer, and we've got a copier, and we got computers, and we've got popcorn made for us every morning. And we have got people here that are on the ground floor of some of the most innovative new businesses. One of them is a tire place that is creating tires for military that don't have inner tubes in them. And it's just the coolest thing. You should see this stuff. And it's being made right here in our little incubator in Wausau, Wisconsin. It's just, we've got, I think, what did he say, 13 different food things going on in our little kitchen that's out here, of people who are making sauces and making different kinds of things. I actually did a resume for the guy that did Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's, he didn't do it here, but he made Sweet Baby Ray's sauces. If you ever haven't had his sauce, oh my gosh, it's just great for doing barbecue sauce. And people have to get a start somewhere. They have to have that opportunity to be discovered. And if you as an employer can discover that thing in an individual that is working for you, and you can say, good job, you did that, boy, I really value you. I can tell you that person will not miss work again. They will be there on time because they feel valued. They feel important. And if you haven't read The 1 Minute Manager, that is a hugely important thing. And it's a very simple concept. It is helping an individual to realize what their goals are. Help them set their goals for their job. Help them understand what that means. And then review those goals on a regular basis at the end of the day in the beginning, and then at the end of the week. And if they're not reaching their goal, then you've got a 1-minute correction, not a write-up that threatens their job, but you say, okay, what happened and why did that happen? Why didn't you get that done? Okay, how can we correct them? Include them in the solution, and then praise them for what you know they can do. And I can guarantee you they'll deliver a better thing tomorrow. And it may come when you find that this just isn't a good fit. But by then they'll know it's not a good fit. And if we're involved, I can help that person find a place that is a good fit for them. Because sometimes people just get a job to make money, and that's never a good enough reason for anybody. So that's another important thing, is that upfront assessment on interviewing and setting that up. Josh, do you have some advice for employers on that upfront, job description and putting out that, that job order? What are people looking for? Do you have any advice along those lines? Because that's where it starts.
Well, right, that's true. A lot of things people are looking for is obviously they want a great salary or a great hourly wage and great benefits. And they want to have a job that they are going to enjoy doing for a long time. And I think that's very difficult at times. I think some of it is to blame. I mean, if you look at society, you start out with, you go to elementary school all the way through high school. It's structured. You start school at 7:30 and you're done at 3. But then you go to college and it's more of, class. You might have 1-2 classes a day. They might be 50 minutes long. And then you spend a lot of time doing tests and studying. Well, then when we get out of college, then it's back to a regimented 8-to-5 job. And I know a lot of people, a lot of time, are looking for some kind of flexibility where they can make a decent living and be able to provide for their family. So But in terms of job description, the interesting thing is a lot of stuff that's written on a job description is true, but sometimes it goes outside of that scope. And being able to allow that somehow has to happen, because, you know, and you're going to find people that they're really good at one part of something, but they're not really good at another. But you have to find people who are willing to develop, because no matter what position it's in, no matter if they're a manager who's been doing it for 20, 30 years, you know, that person is going to need, you're always learning. You're constantly learning. We're always learning new things. I know I am on a day-to-day basis, and you constantly need a coach or a mentor or a consultant or somebody there to help you develop as time goes on, no matter how long you've been doing something, no matter what position you're in. And so I think that is something that we can't say, you know, if you think about it logically, well, here's a job, and now I want you to do this exact job for 30 years. You know, is that something you can commit to? Well, that's a lot to think about. I mean, who thinks that far ahead? So it's hard to, you know, it's being able to allow that creativity, allow for some kind of change and flexibility in what that job entails, and allow that position to grow. Just don't confine it to, this is the scope of that job, and it's not going out any further than that. And I think that's where a lot of people find a lot of frustration too, is that this job sounds good on paper, they get involved in it, and it wasn't exactly what they said it was, or maybe they're not being challenged enough, or maybe it was more than what they thought it was going to be. So being able to have that conversation, I know that's difficult on an employer side, at least to assess, you know, if an individual is going to be good within their organization, because you don't know what 2-3 years down the road is going to bring. But, you know, having a better system in place for gauging that and learning how that employee is, I know there's a lot of different tests that can be done to understand, you know, is this an employee more of a, you know, they got to see facts and figures, or are they more of a visionary, or do they like to be more creative? So certain things like that, I think that's important too, to try and take some of those standardized tests to a certain extent and put that towards the job description, so you know, you have a better idea on what kind of individual you're looking at, not just do they meet the qualifications and have they had 5 years work experience. So there's a lot of different things that an employer can do, but I understand both sides of it, and it can be difficult, and it's not an easy task. But that's where I would start. I would recommend that, you know, you start looking first.
That's great, and that's actually part of what my piece is that I can bring, because what I did at the job center is that there is a huge amount of free online assessments that people can do. Now the job center, like I'm sure a lot of employers have no clue that the job centers do this for free in the state of Wisconsin, at least, and I'm sure many others do, and if they don't, I would ask. But the ACT came up a few years ago in response to employers' requests with a program that is the employability. It is the National Career Readiness Certificate. It's called National Career Readiness Certificate, and they give people a test similar to what ACT is, but they developed this test called Key Train. And Key Train actually unlocks the keys to a person's success, is kind of the idea of it. But this Key Train assessment is provided for free through the job center, and it gives people a baseline of how they do in workplace readiness. Now there is a whole bunch of different things like teamwork and observation and communication and listening skills, but the 4 core ones that they do and give you this certificate on are the basics. It's reading for information. It is I gotta think. There's a math one on there. There's one on locating information. And so you do these core tests, and it'll give you a baseline. If people can do the basic work, it'll actually give you a scale of, with these scores, an individual should be able to do this particular job, because all those jobs have already been evaluated. You know, all employers have job evaluations that are done to say, well, how much brain power do I need to do this job? So that's how. Then you get these scores on a bronze to a platinum level, that will tell you what kind of ability this individual has for those basic skills. And then you can do the add-on tests that do cost money. But these basic ones can give you a free assessment. And then there are a lot of other things out there that I actually have a whole workshop that I do on online free assessments that people can do to do some baseline things, like even assessments for mental health and substance abuse and anger management. All of those, they're free, they're online, and it could be something that you set up for people if are some concerns. Maybe people are in denial to whether or not they have issues, and maybe they could just take some of these assessments right there at work and see for themselves how they score on some of these assessments. They don't need to necessarily share that with you, but that'll give them an opportunity, and then they could maybe run that off, take it to a doctor and say, hey, this is how I scored on this online assessment. I'm thinking it says I have some serious problems and I should call somebody. It could really help to break through a person rather than somebody on the outside telling them that they got an anger problem. They do the evaluation for themselves. Now, granted, they're not always honest, but it can at least help break the cycle in there. The other thing, I know some employers have heard about the training True Colors. Now, there's a lot of those kinds of personality assessments that can be done, that if you understood your personality, you certainly would be able to work differently with people. I'm an orange. For anybody who has taken True Colors, I'm an orange. I'm the kind of person that drives a green or a gold just crazy because I've always got some new idea. Let's do it different. Let's try this. Let's try that. I don't like going through the motions. I don't like policies and procedures. I don't like having to go through the chain of command. It's like I'm a get her done person. Most oranges are. And you've got people in your organization. You need to find how to appreciate people like me and use us in the right way, and have a support person there that can kind of rein us in when we need to be reined in, but yet appreciate us for what we have to offer. And my previous boss really did that well. He had a tough time reining me in, but for the most part, he kind of let me fly with some of my ideas because they were good ideas. But then he also gave me the support to make sure that when I had a good idea, I also had somebody that could help me stay organized so I didn't, screw it up and not show up at the right place at the right time, which left to myself, I have been known to do, or not get things done timely. So that's my thing. Dave, are you on the line yet? I didn't hear him pop in.
We are so sorry that we had a computer problem and were not able to hook up with Dave Mahler for the end of this webinar. We did, however, record him at a later time, and we do have that video recording available for you. If you would like to just email us or call us, we'll be glad to send you that rest of that talk free of charge, where Dave is telling about his Christian faith and how he used that in the workplace to work with people and help them to change their lives. They met after work, and it was just really an awesome story. So please send for that. We'll be glad to mail it out to you. And in the meantime, don't keep banging your head against the wall, doing the same thing, expecting different results. Why don't you be a faucet of hope and make money for yourselves and all of those that you care about and your employees? Make the changes, give us a call, and let us come and do that assessment so that we can help you to make the changes that you need to make. Thanks for listening. This is Linda Larson Schlitz of Faucet of Hope and Joshua Haas of All In Coaching and Consulting. Thank you.